Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Part number 5 of the weathering technique that we've been working on. And this here part of the, I guess you could say the part of the technique that we're doing is not really the mud technique. This is another highlight thing that we're using. It creates shadows. We really won't get back onto a lot of anything that has to do with the actual mud on this until after I get the rest of the model painted. Because remember, I have not painted anything on the upper side of this model yet. All this is being done underneath. And for you guys that only use a spray can that are trying to do some of these techniques, you'd want to paint the whole model first, top and bottom, before you would do this. But for us guys that use an airbrush, we can come in and be very, very accurate with the airbrush down the sides and stuff, and not really get anything on the underneath of the chassis that really affects us. So just a little bit of a tip there. So what we're going to do this time around is we're going to start adding some depth to the suspension components, and we'll show you how to do that. The color that I'm going to be using for this is actually Vallejo. This is the model color, and this is, there we go. This is black gray, and it's water-based, very nice product. I use it a lot. And what I do is I put that into my Vallejo Model Wash bottle, and I put like maybe three to four drops of this out of this bottle into this small bottle, and I'll hold them up there so you can see the difference. This is the difference in the size of the bottles. And like I say, 3 or 4 drops into this bottle, and then the rest of it gets filled up with water. Shake it up real good to get it all mixed around. And what we're going to do this time around is we're going to do what they call a pen wash. And a pen wash is time consuming, but it's a very nice technique, and it really helps with the depth of your detail. So I just got a cap here. It's actually a thinner cap, and we're just going to put a few drops of the mixture that we've made up into that cap. And we're going to be using a pointy brush this time around. Let's see if we can get if you can see, there we go. We're going to use a pointy brush on this. And what we're trying to do this time around is we just want to load the brush. And it doesn't really matter what size pointy brush you use. You don't want to use a bigger pointed brush. Let me grab one up here. You don't want to use a point brush that looks like this. That's a little bit too heavy. You can see the difference in the brushes there. You don't want to use one like this. So try to use one fairly small for when you're doing the pen washes. And like I say, this is it is a time-consuming process, but it really makes a big difference in the overall finish of the model. So what we want to do with this pen wash is we basically want to go into any crevices that we want to create a shadow in, like where these control arms mount in their brackets. We want to drop some down in there. And the difference between a pen wash and a sludge wash, we basically take this little bottle and we would squeeze out a little bit like we did with the brown on various spots of the model, and then we would scrub it around with the brush. Well, this time we're trying to be very accurate on where we put stuff. So that's the difference between a pen and a sludge wash. So we're going to go in and we're going to continue to drop a little bit in these control arms. And being random on this is a very good thing to remember. You don't want to be identical on each one of these because everything's going to shadow different. And if you try to keep it very random, it looks more realistic. The other thing that we're going to do with this, like around our bolts that we did our silver highlighting on, the dry brushing technique, we want to drop a little bit of this mixture around the bolts. And what that'll do is really make the bolt kind of stand out. And especially on like a suspension bolt or something like that, it looks, when everything dries, it kind of looks like the grease seal or the boot that they put around it. And on others, it'll look like a little bit of oil or a little bit of, grease or whatever that's got on or around that bolt. So that's what I say. This is a little bit of a time-consuming part of the thing, but it's very rewarding in the end. And you'll notice when you put it on that it looks like it's real heavy around the bolts and everything. Don't worry about that. As that water evaporates, it will tone down a whole lot, and then you will really see the effect that you were trying to do all along. It's just one of those things you got to be a little bit patient and wait on the effect to happen. You're not really going to see the effect while it's still wet, but you will see it after it dries. And like I say, it does create a very realistic finish to your model. And you just want to go around everything on here, all the bolts, things like that. And as you can see, like right here on these platforms, there's like bolts that bolt that platform on. You just want to drop a little bit of that down in that recessed groove right there, just like that. Same thing back here. And if you miss a couple on this step, that's fine, because like I say, you want to try to keep this random. Anything that should be an open hole, like these squares right here are actually an open hole. Go ahead and drop it in there and get it, fill up that entire channel in there. And that way it creates a shadow and it makes it look like that's actually open and not a solid piece of plastic. And, just going around all your bolt detail. When you get to these rear ends and stuff where the fins are on the rear ends, you can do this technique where you just kind of let it flow down around the fins. And once that dries, it'll really pop out your dry brushing on that finned area. And you can also use this, like, let me find an area here. There's a lip on the back of like this front rear end here. You can touch a little bit of it right there and let it flow along that lip. And when everything dries, it'll look like it might be a little bit of fluid leaking, or just, a little bit of fluid buildup from, rear end fluid changes or something like that. There's a lot of things that you can do. Different weathering, ideas, whether you want to create a grease stain or you want to create an oil leak or, anything. You can do it with weathering techniques. And just depending on what color and where you put it on the model will kind of dictate, what you're trying to simulate. So hopefully everybody understands that. But like I say, this is a little bit time consuming on the pen wash, because you want to go around, you want to be, pretty accurate on where you put things. Any detail you want to pop out, make sure you get a little bit around all the raised details. And when this dries, you will really see a huge a difference. It really shows up all the details that kind of get lost in paint sometimes. Like where these plates bolt on down here, you can go ahead and wipe a little bit of the mixture across that and it'll flow around those bolts. And the only thing that really stands out there will be the bolts when everything dries. So have fun with it, play with it, practice with it, and, learn from each one. The first time that I did weathering, I was like, well, that might be overdone, especially when I was putting it on. But with these washes and stuff like that, remember, you can always go back and change these very easily. And another thing is, if you put down, like we're working on this spot right here, say that you look at it and you go, oh, I might have put down too much. I don't want that to dry in that position. You can come along with a piece of cloth like this and just take it in there and touch it right onto that part, and it'll pull all that mixture up onto the end of your cloth there. Get it here at the camera. See, it pulled it up right up on the end of the cloth. So that way you can go back and start over on that part and not put as much down. And you just corrected your mistake right there, and you're done. So yeah, that's what I say. Just go around and do all, like this box right here you see, you want to do it around the base of that, get that all blacked in, and it'll look, it's amazing when it dries, the difference. My camera is not going to pick up a whole lot of this stuff. Let me see if I can hold it up here and see if we can get somewhat of a zoom in on this thing. There you go. You can see around those bolts and stuff, and it makes a world of difference. And like I say, when this dries, it looks so realistic. Very nice technique. I wish a lot of people out there would try it and really get the hang of it, because I think you'd be using it a lot. And what I'm doing here, you can also use this on a clean model. You could use this on if you're creating like a show car. Well, not necessarily a show car, but say a street car, say a pro street car that's being driven on the street. Like when I did my 1/16 scale VW Beetle Pro Street, a lot of these techniques that I'm using here are in that model. Even though it's got the super shiny paint on it, it really makes a difference. It's just a matter of how much you put on and where you put it and what you're trying to simulate. So that's all we've got for this. I'm going to go back over a few more things on here off camera, and we're going to let that dry. Once that dries, we're going to seal it down with another coat of the TS80, the flat clear. And then that's going to be all that we're going to do to the weathering on the underside until I get everything done on top. So the next thing that we're going to do on camera, we're going to go ahead and get the wheel and tire assemblies out. And I already have these put together. This is the wheel and tire assembly for this model, and very nice, very nicely molded. There's no hint of a mold line like it usually is down through the center of the tires. Very nice, rubber tires in this one, and nice detail on the wheels. So once we do some dry brushing, all that'll pop out and look real good. So we got that video coming up, so stay tuned for that one. And as always, if you got any questions or anything up to this point, leave a question on the video and I'll be more than glad to help you out. So as always, this is Hunter from Showtime Studios, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.